everybody. Welcome to the training, learning, and development community. Thanks for joining us today. Let's see, we have some folks already coming. Abigail is here. Thanks for being here with us today, Abigail. Happy Tuesday to you. Oh, Maisha already added that in the comment area. It's Tuesday. Okay, today's guest, we have Maisha L Cannon with us today, chief learner and founder of the Collab Lab. I've been looking at Maisha's background on LinkedIn. I'm going to paste her LinkedIn URL in the chat because, Maisha, I think you have a very fascinating background, and this is not going to be a typical L&D showcase for TLDC. Your background is more like talent management and recruitment, and so accordingly, I have some very different questions for you.
Awesome. Excited to be here.
Yeah. Let's see. So let's just get into it, if that's okay, Maisha. So just give me just a real quick bio, like introduce yourself real quick so we can hear it.
For sure. So, hey, everyone watching, I am Maisha, which means life in Swahili. And I like to say that I've been in recruiting since the 1900s, 1994 BG to be precise. And that's before Google, if you can even imagine such a time.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was looking and I think, it was definitely, I had to scroll way down on your profile to find it.
Yeah, I might have even removed it. Yeah, staffing specialist. Actually, e-entertainment. Yes, that's where I start, right? So as not to age myself too much on my LinkedIn profile, but goes back to actually high school, South Central Los Angeles, where I grew up. Was in the 10th grade at Crenshaw High, and there was an internship program called Yes to Jobs. And the title or the slogan was "People Can't Be What They Don't Know Exist." And the program, which is still around, took children from the inner city, young adults from the inner city of LA, shipped them 20 miles west to Hollywood, Beverly Hills, and gave us our first taste of employment in the entertainment industry. So my first job in 94-ish was interning at Castle Rock Entertainment, which at the time was the home of Seinfeld. So that was a really good introduction to the working world, but that's how I ended up in corporate HR, just from an internship way back in the 90s.
Right. And you've had stints with big tech, and now you have your own company. It's an amazing story. I mean, check out Maisha's profile. I just pasted it in chat. So anyone who's live, go ahead and take a look. I'd like to know more about your career path and specifically what led you to specialize in talent acquisition.
Yeah, it was really that early introduction, that internship. So the first summer I was actually an IT help desk intern the whole summer, which was great. The question I remember being told to ask is your computer on? And that solved 80% of the problems back in the day. And that following summer, Castle Rock invited me back, but I was a floater that summer. And so I remember two things really clearly, even though it was a long time ago. One, how painfully quiet it was when I was a floater in the accounting and finance department. And two, how at home I felt when I interned that one day in the HR department with Joyce and Jan. And they felt that same energy from me. And I just fell right into being an HR assistant with them and stayed with them through college part-time. And I loved recruiting and hiring. I can call it HR personnel at the time, but I loved it because it blended so many of my interests. So the people, the technology, and that cognitive part, that thinking and, figuring out how to say no to someone who's not going to get the job, or how to synthesize the data on a resume. That was really fascinating to me back then as a young woman. So yeah, that's kind of how I found HR. I wouldn't have found it any other way, for sure, in South Central LA at Crenshaw High, right? But I'm grateful for Yes to Jobs for introducing me to what was going on the other side of town. I have to share that the most fascinating thing to me when I was in my little Hyundai Excel, driving to work from LA to from South Central to Beverly Hills every day, was this place. And I never knew what it was. The word on the header was Starbucks, and there would always be a long line of people. And I always used to wonder, I wonder what they sell there. So yeah, it's kind of ironic that now I've learned the hard way how you can get addicted to Starbucks coffee. But yeah, back then it was very fascinating. We didn't have any in the inner city. So seeing it, on the west side of town was something that I remember.
Wow, that's fascinating. Now I do sort of want to get more into that. You felt at home with the HR people. Was it the social piece of it, the part that like where you were helping people, or yeah, what was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are good. I think it was a little bit of that. It was the helping people. I liked how free and how much, I think, authenticity I saw in the two women who were the HR director and HR manager at the time, Joyce Dasher and Jan Streamer. And I love that my creativity was welcomed. So, for
Mm.
instance, in entertainment, you get a lot of people that have big dreams of working in entertainment. And so we would have this set of resumes that we didn't want to put in the circular file, aka the trash can, but they were creative. They weren't in a manila envelope or a mailing envelope. They were like poster boards and art projects that people had sent in. And I just remember, when we would get those in the mail, special delivery, and Joyce would say, go ahead and put it in the HR closet. And we would keep it. And I'd just be in awe at like the detail that people put into, this representation of themselves beyond a resume. They wanted to be memorable. And so I think I was fascinated, by how people express themselves when it came to their working career. I was still very young in my career. I don't think I knew what I wanted to be when I grow up. I don't know if I even know now. But yeah, I think I was just fascinated. Like, wow, they get to do this all day. They get to look at resumes. They get to meet people. And Joyce on her desk had like all of these like really cool tchotchkes, like Nickelodeon cartoon little bobbleheads and like all of this fun stuff. So I think it was like the vibes that I got from them was like, wow, you can just have fun at work. I didn't feel that in the other departments, even in IT or in accounting. When I sat at the front desk, I had to be very buttoned up and very, precise and very accurate. But I felt like HR, you can just kind of like show up as you. You can have fun in an interview, make the candidates laugh. It was a place you can
Really, understand how the
Mhm.
entertainment industry in Los Angeles is
Yes.
kind of just this huge like thing, and
Yeah.
like so many people are in it,
Yes.
and it's kind of got its own vibe.
It does. It really does. And I think about that often, even just this morning on the news with the writer strike. I think about, wow, I remember seeing those others, WGA, and reading the trades like Hollywood Reporter every day as an intern when I would pick up the mail. So yeah, it's a really special place that you sometimes take for granted if you're from LA.
Right, right.
Hmm.
So, as a talent acquisition professional,
Yes.
um, you obviously must have challenges, regular challenges. What are some of the most common ones, and
Mm.
what are ways to sort of overcome them? And and it's interesting asking this question to you because mostly our audience is L&D. So,
Hmm.
keep that in mind because
Yes.
these are things that we probably don't hear a whole bunch about. So, really fascinated.
Ah. Oh, that's good to know. So as I think back to common challenges, the ones that are popping up are the ones that were the same back then as they are now. So I'll start with those. One is the disconnect between the job seeker and the resume. When I was a recruiter at USC, this is probably 2005. I remember candidates calling it the black hole of recruiting. This is around the time when the ATS, the applicant tracking system, became popularized and people could no longer just walk into the physical office and leave a resume. And so there was just an outrage from the community like, I put my resume on the internet, whatever that is, and then it disappears into a black hole and I never hear back, right? And I see those same challenges now, though technology has brought us so far and we're able to do so many things in terms of efficiency. I could email you my resume right now as a link. I could drop it in, the chat. It's very easy to get, but still there's that silence and that disconnect between the person who's looking for the job and the person that has the ability to kind of lift them up to be seen. That they just you have the volume, you can't reply to everyone, and the skills have to be very specific, and there are a lot of things that can get in the way. So I think that black hole probably is called something now. I think they call it ghosting. The recruiter ghosted me. They sent me a confirmation email and then I never heard back. So that disconnect is still very prevalent.
Wow. Is there any way that, I mean, do you combat that in any particular way, or try to overcome it? Or is it just, that's just the way that it is now?
That's a really good question. I'm sure there are a lot of companies, depending on their size, that can be innovative around that. The way that I was, trained back in the day was that everyone who applied got a reply. Everyone
Right.
that applied got a reply. So as the intern, I remember on the typewriter there were some Castle Rock postcards, and I would put everyone's name and then hand sign it, like, hey, you'll hear from us in 2 weeks, if we can follow up. But I think because everything is so automated now, right? Especially we think about how far we come with ChatGPT, it's very easy to send an automated receipt email and then not take it beyond that. So I think companies that are intentional with how many requisitions or how many jobs their recruiters have to support can control a little bit of how much time recruiters have to really nurture and give a white glove service, right? You can't reach out to all 200 applicants if you have 30 active roles. I've been there, right? But if you have 10 roles and your team is adequately staffed and your manager is not having you in meetings all day, and gives you time to manage your day, then you can set aside every Friday, like Stacy Zapar in our industry tells us, and give your no update, right? You can say, hey, Luis, got your resume, still no word back from the hiring manager. He's on vacation. I'll get back to you. So we can be more intentional, but I think we're trying to keep up with the speed of business, which I'm sure L&D experiences too. So it's really hard to give that white glove service that you would want to.
Yeah. Yeah. So Abigail had just posted, I just worked with a recruiter directly, applied through them, and then nothing.
That's exactly right. And that's that experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't know the context of, like, is that recruiter still employed? Were they one of the many that have just been laid off and now a colleague is handling that person's workload and their own? Is that why you didn't hear back? Right? It's not all the time that the person is just neglectful and not good at their job. There could be all these circumstances around it. Yeah. So I would say to Abigail, don't be discouraged. Continue to follow up. If you feel strongly about that job, you can reach out to the hiring manager on LinkedIn, right? And say, hey, I applied, haven't heard back from the recruiter. Just want to let you know I'm interested. Drop your resume, and sometimes that'll nudge the process along if the hiring manager also thinks that you're well aligned for the role.
Okay, that's good. So a little
Mhm.
follow up.
Mhm.
So, and you were talking earlier about this too, like the early days and faxing, even because I even remember having to do that.
Yes.
Even in the L&D space. I know that the
Oh,
first job
wow.
I got in L&D, I actually faxed it in, and then I heard from my new boss 3 months later, like
What?
yeah,
3 months?
took him 3 months, yeah. But how
Oh,
has
goodness.
just over the course of your career, how has it
Mhm.
changed? Like what,
Mhm.
how about the advancements in technology and social media? I mean, used to be before you'd look it up in the newspaper, you'd see
That's
a phone
right.
number to either fax or call, but now it's
Yeah.
so different. We've got commercials on for Indeed regularly, like on the sports channels that I watch.
Yeah.
But how has it changed over the years for you?
Wow, so much. I love to hear that story too about your facts and how patient you were 3 months later to even remember where you had applied. But yes, I remember, in college, one of my part-time jobs was working for the LA Times and separating the sections of the paper, which included the classifieds, and my fingers being black, right, with the ink from the news print. And back then, job ads were very short, you may remember, because it cost per letter to
Right.
even write a job description, right? So your job ad was a couple of lines of text, maybe 3, it'd be a short block. If they had big money to take out an ad, maybe it'd be like a fourth or an eighth of the size of the paper. So yeah, we've come a long way because now job postings are all online. They're aggregated through sites like Indeed and LinkedIn, and you can, there's a plethora of sites depending on if you want to work remotely. I was on ChatGPT yesterday, and there's a plugin for healthcare jobs called Vivian. So you can be very specific now if you only want to hear about the healthcare jobs or you only want startup jobs. So yeah, we've come a long way in terms of how we even disseminate information to let communities know that we're hiring. When you said facts, it reminded me of even one step before that, or maybe around the same time when I was working at NBC in college, in Burbank, still in Hollywood or in that industry. And I was updating the job hotline as part of my job there as an HR assistant. So I don't know if you remember, there was a time when, you might post on a local community cafe board before there was a Starbucks, maybe in a diner, post on the brown board, call the job hotline to find out what's open. And every week I would be excited to update that outgoing voicemail for NBC and let people know if you're interested in the page position, you can send your resume to this address with this special suite number. And if you're interested in a producer position, you address your envelope to so and so. So yeah, I mean, it's really come a long way. And I wonder, and I would be curious to hear your thoughts on it too. Has streamlining everything helped at all? If we see that even still Abigail is applying online a lot quicker than mailing a letter, but still a disconnect. I don't know if all the technology that we're excited about has advanced us really as a profession, but it's there. We can use it. It's pretty cool, right?
Right. It feels like the best mode is to kind of figure out what you need to filter out. Like,
Hmm.
don't do all of these don't do these things that just don't work anymore.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
And it seems like LinkedIn is such a big part of, of finding a job and even recruiting.
Yeah.
There's that piece of it. I know for
Hmm.
myself that that when I see, mostly it's been word of mouth for a lot of people that have found like success in finding work.
Okay.
And and that can be, that's not easy. That's not
Yeah,
easy.
that's
But
right.
so you mentioned Chat GPT, and I have to
Hmm.
ask, like, what the heck are you doing with Chat GPT? And you just mentioned Vivian. What's going on there?
Yeah, I'm having so much fun with ChatGPT. In fact, I'm glad you mentioned it because I'm going to be working on a resource for facilitators. So I don't know the L&D community as a whole well enough to make sure that it's applicable to like the work that IDs do. So I'm going to start with facilitation, which I know, and it's going to be like power plugins that can help you with your work as a facilitator. So the plugins were just released maybe 72 hours ago, and there's over 100 of them, and you can use 3 at a time. So I'm kind of packaging them together in ways that, okay, a facilitator would love to use this particular plugin like access link to get on the internet, right? Because you can't access the web with regular GPT. And then there's edX. So I'm like, okay, maybe they would like to go to edX to learn about courses. There's even one called Giga Tutor, which can help teach you something, right? So if you're a facilitator, but you're not the subject matter expert, maybe it's worth plugging in the learning objectives to GigaTutor and getting up to speed, before you deliver the session. So yeah, I'm exploring just all of the possibilities, really. It's at the possibility and experimentation phase with GPT, but I do think it's going to be powerful, not just for TA professionals, but for L&D professionals, in terms of the work that we do. I see it already when I wrote a conference talk description just a couple of hours ago, and I asked GPT to put together the learning objectives based on Bloom's taxonomy, because I didn't, that's like a heavy lift for me cognitively to do. As a creative person, I enjoy more of the, the presentation and the deck design. But I'm like, can you do the heavy lifting? And then within 20 seconds, it's giving me 5 objectives. I'm like, great. All right, send it off. So
Done. Yeah.
done. Checklist. Yes.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Have you been
Did you?
using it,
Oh
Laura?
yeah. No,
Oh,
in
good.
fact, just a couple of days ago, I signed up for GPT-4. So
Oh, good. Yes. Yes.
and
Yes. It's
I've
worth
been
it.
playing around with it. It's actually terrifying in a lot of ways.
Really? In what way? Tell me. I'm
Well, just
curious.
because I know, and that there's like an entire generation of
Mhm.
people that are probably studying to do something that isn't going to be required anymore.
Oh, right. That's a great call out. But isn't that the case of all of us? Like if you went to school with me in high school when I graduated in 99 from college, if you studied marketing, what you learned is absolutely antiquated and no longer up
Right.
to speed, right? So that's the importance of L&D and continual learning, right? Learning in the flow
Absolutely.
of work, right?
Yeah.
Learning in the flow of work when you need it on demand, because we all have to continue upskilling every day. And, as I celebrate the 20th year anniversary of my first year as a full cycle recruiter, I'm so grateful that learning is such a passion of mine, because I see other
Yes.
peers who after 20 years are not into GPT. They're like, I don't need that. I'm just going to keep doing it the way I've been doing it. Right. But
Yeah.
it's so fascinating to me. It's kind of re-energizing me, as a TA and as a new L&D professional.
No, I totally agree.
Hmm.
I feel the same way. It's helping me learn a lot of stuff,
Yes.
just like you were
Yes.
saying with Bloom's taxonomy. It just
Uh-huh.
gives you again, sort of filtering out the unnecessary stuff and getting you right
That's
to
right.
the point. You have to make
That's right.
sure that it's accurate though. You just have to,
That's right.
just do
That's
your
right.
due diligence.
Yes,
No,
that's
that's
a great
great.
point. That's a
I
great
love
point.
it. We should probably set up a separate session altogether and talk about
Yes, I would
ChatGPT.
love to. Yes, we can talk shop.
So speaking of that type of thing, what do you have any other sourcing strategies that you found, like for effective, talent management and recruiting? Um what can you share some like that?
Oh, sure, for sure. So I started sourcing about, I don't know, 10 years ago after 8 years as a full cycle recruiter, which is an untraditional path to go from recruiter to sourcer. But I think it helps me open my lens into what was possible. And I really love the research that sourcers do. So I have this Sweet 16 kind of menu cookbook of sourcing strategies that I like to train on. I just did a Maven course for 2 weeks. It was called Prospect Like a Pro. So I'll share a few with you. So one is called I for Inclusion, right? But it's spelled EYE, I for Inclusion. And this one is about knowing how LinkedIn Recruiter, which you mentioned earlier, this is the recruiter tool is what companies pay for, right? For their recruiters to use. So you get a little bit more power out of the tool, but it's how to understand how that database works so that when you want to source inclusively, you know that no matter what the market is, LinkedIn will always present women in the percentage that they occur in the market. So, for instance, if women are 20% of software engineers, then on every page of 25, you know that 10% or two and a half, three will be women. So, knowing how the database presents the information, now you can go through 25 pages of results and pull just those women first, right? You're going to go back and get everybody who's qualified, but you have that eye for inclusion where you're bringing women in at the top of funnel first, reaching out to them first, week one of the recruitment. And then you go back to page one and continue to reach out as normal. So that's one way you can have that lens, yes, versus going page to page and saying, I'm only seeing 2 women and telling your hiring manager, there's no women out here. It's just, for every 25 men I see 2 women. Well, 2 times 25 is 50. So there's 50 women in your results, right? Reach out to them first. So that one I call I for inclusion. Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see, what's another one? This was an interesting one called fuzzy logic. It's taken from the engineering world because sourcers love using something called Boolean logic from George Boole. And with fuzzy logic, you intentionally misspell the title of the role, for instance, to find people who also misspelled it. So if you were to look in your LinkedIn, even in LinkedIn Basic, you could try this and put in quotation marks, software engineer with 3 E's where there should be 2 near the end of the word. You will find hundreds, maybe thousands of results. And the last couple times I've done it, it's been an Apple engineer. So am I not going to reach out to an Apple engineer because they put an extra E in the word? No, I'm absolutely going to reach out to them. But I'm also the only one finding them if the other recruiters are just searching for the title as it should be spelled. So that's where misspelling can actually come in handy. Unlike what they taught us in first grade, right? So I'll put it in the chat so you can see. And
that's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's really, really interesting. And so that's been a helpful tool for you to do that?
Yeah, especially when you hit a wall. So if you think about, for context at Google, I was one of 300 sourcers and we're all on the same requisition, right? So as soon as a recruiter grabs a candidate, they own the candidate. So you can't do double outreach. So to be ahead of the curve, right? If you have 299 peers doing the same thing as you have to think outside the box, right? So I would do everything, including this fuzzy logic, to waking up earlier. I was on the West Coast, but I had colleagues in New York. So I'd set my alarm to wake up earlier than the East Coast recruiters so I could grab people that were new to LinkedIn. That's another sourcing strategy. I haven't named it. It's kind of like a welcome committee, right? So you can check a filter in LinkedIn and say, I want people who joined 1 day ago. So I'll get the fresh people that are just adding their profiles to LinkedIn. Maybe they're college students that are just hopping into the system and using that technique, that sourcing strategy, then I'll be the first to welcome you. So if you just joined LinkedIn today, Luis, then you'd be getting an email from me like, hey, welcome to LinkedIn. This is the first of many recruiting emails that you're going to get, but we should talk first, right? So anything that you can do to just get an edge on your own internal competition. That's not even thinking about the competition outside of Google, right? Because we're competing against other famed companies, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, right? So yeah, even just your own teammates. Sometimes you have to get an edge on them and be first, right? Early bird gets the worm.
Yeah, yeah. No, these are fascinating strategies. Wait,
Uh-huh.
you had mentioned you referenced something Maven, something about
Yes, Maven. So Maven is a new, have you heard of it? Maven is a new learning and development community, actually. I'll drop the
no.
link there. So they focus on cohort-based courses. So one of the co-founders started Udemy, which you probably have heard of, kind of came in, I guess, that was 10, 12 years ago with like the online on-demand courses like
Mhm.
Udemy, Coursera, some of those that are just video on demand. But they're at the beginning of what they're calling kind of like this pivot to more community cohort based learning. So all of the classes are live. They're usually 2 to 4 weeks. You meet once or twice a week, and you have a cohort of cohort of learners rather, and you're learning a thing together. So that was really great. I did my first Maven launch this month and had a very small cohort, but it was great, right? Because you get to know each other, spend time together. Our sessions were 90 minutes twice a week. And then after 2 weeks, you have new LinkedIn connections to add, and you can deepen your community and deepen your learnings.
So so for these Maven
Yes.
things, you're facilitating a work group, like a or a workshop of some sort?
Workshop. Exactly. Yep. So you're essentially a Maven instructor. Maven hosts the platform, right? So they have all of the community features, it's a great, digital syllabus that they build out. You can put in your videos and everything you would, your curriculum.
Mhm.
But it's integrated with Zoom, right? So we're still using Zoom in the platform, but it's just a way to kind of keep the learning contained there if you were trying to piece it together prior, right? Because if you or I didn't have Maven and we wanted to say host a course together, we'd have to figure out Zoom. We'd have to figure out emailing our learners, who's going to email and how,
Yeah.
reminders, follow-ups, right? The video recordings, do we send them out? Do we place them somewhere like on a, do we build a website now, to house it? So instead of all of those disparate pieces, Maven has combined everything, including the landing pages, right, for the course and your wait list and all of that. So I encourage
Yeah.
anybody who, has a specialty, which we all do, to consider Maven. There's no cost to join. They do a Maven course accelerator program for future instructors. They run it pretty often. It's like a 3-week, pretty intense course, but it gets you up to speed and helps you launch your very first cohort.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
What other things have you taught on Maven?
Just that one, just prospect like a pro. But I have a wait list up now for recruiting with artificial intelligence, and it's getting good feedback so far. So I think I'm going to diversify it so it won't just be GPT, because now we have Bard. There's some free AI tools that recruiters and probably L&D professionals would benefit from, like a word tune, right? For editing. There's Jasper for editing. There is even, I include in that 11, there's Spotify DJ. I don't know if you know that there is an AI DJ within Spotify that will, be in your ear all day and give you a custom mix based on your listening habits. So it's kind of
Did not
nice.
know that.
Yeah. So I think I want to include that in that AI for recruiting and sourcing kind of course that I'll do next on Maven, hopefully this summer.
That is cool. That is very cool,
Yeah.
Maisha. Gosh,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm running a little bit short on time, but I
Yes.
need to know more about some of these other things. Now, first of
Yes.
all, Collab Lab.
Yes.
Tell us about Collab Lab.
Yes. So I resigned my last position at Roblox November of 2022 with the intention to take a 6-month break. 3 weeks into my career break, I had incorporated a company here in British Columbia in Canada. So I don't know what happened there with my plan to rest, but because the ideas were coming to me with such ease, I said, let me just go with the momentum and the flow. So the Collab Lab is learning and development for talent teams. So it's really playing off of the 30 years of recruiting and sourcing experience that I've had and all of the training I've been doing in the community, kind of as a passion project for the past 8 or 9 years. And now making it official, making that my full-time thing. So I do recruiting, sourcing, and technology training for talent teams.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So
Yeah.
and what's the website for that one?
Yes, it's trycollablab.com, and I'll type it in the chat too.
Cool. And then I
Trycollablab.
also want to know about SourceCon. You're
Yeah.
7X speaker at SourceCon. What is that?
Yes, SourceCon is the community for sourcers. Yes, so sourcers and recruiters are very similar. There's a lot of overlap, but the sourcing community loves to share more than any profession I've ever been a part of. I've been an elementary school teacher. I never saw as much sharing, even in the educational sector, as sourcers. They want to share their best practices, their hacks, the tools they're using. So SourceCon is that community for sourcers. They've been around over 10 years, and I'm excited to continue to support them. I usually volunteer or speak virtually. They just had a couple of conferences this year. I think I was at, no, they have one. They have one coming up, Cal 42, but SourceCon just took place in March. So yeah, it's just a great community of learners, usually in person, but we pivoted to virtual because of the pandemic. But yeah, thousands of sources get together for 2 or 3 days a week, twice a year, and just share all the things. And you learn so much. You have to watch the video replays a couple times because you're guaranteed to miss something. But yeah, they love sharing. So
That's
that's a community,
fascinating.
that I love.
It seems like your vibe, and there's so many things that you do that are really aligned with to the TLDC community. So it's really,
Oh,
really
that's
great to
great.
talk to you.
Okay, thank you.
I am wondering, let's see, I do a regular event and planning this one again in August that is for like teachers that are wanting to pivot from, higher ed or K through 12, pivot into something like instructional design. Is that
Yes.
something you'd be interested in like speaking at?
Of course, I'd love to. I just did a similar workshop for the L&D collective that I'm a part of.
Oh, okay.
And it was just that. It was, from classroom to the boardroom, right? It was
Yeah.
transitioning. So yeah, I'd love to workshop some of that material, maybe refine it with you for the audience to make sure it's the right
Sure.
tone.
Okay.
But yeah, I would love to do that. Having been a teacher, right, for a brief period, I taught special ed
Oh,
and
really?
first grade. Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Maisha, this has been a wonderful conversation.
Yay, I enjoyed
would
it.
like to talk to you again. You have, you have just some incredible knowledge and experience.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Luis, and definitely hope we can continue the conversation and partner in August and just serve as a resource for one another. And I'm not going to forget, we have a GPT chat to schedule too.
Yes, yes. Actually, I definitely want to, I want to put something together because,
Okay.
just for L&D especially, I think that GPT has some really incredible things that can help. And I also work for a technology publisher, and a lot of our focus is on AI right now. And so I'm kind of surrounded by those conversations all the time. And also, like, TLDC is a one-man shop. It's just me.
Okay.
And I've been able to, basically get more sleep because I can have
Your personal assistant.
do some of the hard work now. Yeah, especially with,
love
with
that.
just like summarizing content and doing things like that. But
Yes.
it's a powerful technology, and I think that more people definitely need to know how to use it and understand it better. So I'll try to put something together.
Okay.
So with that, Maisha, thank you so much for joining today. It was a wonderful conversation. I'm looking forward to talking with you again because
awesome.
Yeah, you definitely have some incredible experience and knowledge. So would love to chat again.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to share that article with you for the L&D community for facilitators. And so maybe you can.
That sounds great. Yeah. And even, between Maven, trycollablab.com and some of the other links that you pasted in there, really, really appreciate that. Awesome. And everybody, tomorrow we have another interview. Hainab Zafiz, I think, is going to be with us. She is an instructional designer and manager out of the Bay Area. I think it's Cupertino Electric, and she has some great experience as well. So hopefully we'll see you tomorrow for that one.